Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Overflow Podcast, where we're all about living in the overflow of God's presence and power in our everyday lives. I'm Eli Austin, and I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Pastor Wayne Sutton. We're back for episode 57, and we were talking about faith over works and why grace changes everything. This past Sunday, Pastor Jerry walked us through Romans 9 and reminded us that salvation is not something that we earn through activity or religious traditions or even just trying harder. It's received by grace through faith in Jesus. And faith is not about having perfect strength. It's about reaching out to Jesus and believing that even the smallest touch of his presence can bring healing. So there's no pain too deep and no distance is too great. We're going to talk about grace, surrender, and the kind of faith that opens the door to peace, restoration, and wholeness. So, Wayne, let's get into it. I think, for me, one of the biggest questions that came out of this is really around, understanding that the biggest dangers in faith is doing the right religious thing while missing the relationship that Jesus actually came to give us.
Oh, wow. So good. Yeah, it is. When you look at, I think, I mean, this is on a small, maybe a even stupid analogy, but I think about we grow up in school, we grow up in an educational system where these are the rules. I was really thinking back to high school even.
Mm-hmm.
This is what time you get to school. This is what time the bell rings. This is what you do. We have, by then you've got years of order.
Yes.
How you do things. And there's a process to it. But with some teachers, there's a relationship. Like I still remember Mr. Bryant. He just passed away. Mr. Bryant was an art teacher. But he was so much more than an art teacher. He was an art teacher. He was a counselor. He was a friend.
Yeah.
And I remember years later when Facebook, I saw Mr. Bryant on Facebook. And then I was like, hey, do you still have that IROC Z? He had the IROC. He was a cool teacher. And there was a relationship there. And, I'll confess to some things that maybe I shouldn't even confess to here. I'll be careful. But I remember him one day coming to me and saying, hey, Wayne, at this time, you're always on in this area of the school. It was I don't remember if it was a recess period or something.
Yeah.
And he said, don't be there today. And I thought, what do you mean? He said, don't be there today. And he was right. He had intel and he looked out for me. And I went back to him later and said, thank you for saving me from facing a lot of trouble with the people that were there that I would have been involved with. And he was like, Wayne, he said, I don't know what you're talking about, but you have a lot of potential in you. And he spoke in, that was relationship instead of just
so good.
And so that's where, and imagine a teacher just, what about our Heavenly Father and the grace that he gives us if we can keep that relationship? Because what this teacher didn't do was go to everybody and say, hey, don't be there, don't be there, don't be there. He knew what was going down. It went down. People were in massive trouble. I was spared. And that was grace, mercy, whatever it was. On a human level, how much greater is God?
It's funny. I'll piggyback off of that because I had a similar situation when I was in high school, and I was actually in school suspension. Yes, me in ISS for something that I said that I probably shouldn't have said. And one of my, going back to remembering teachers, Miss Clark, she was, sitting in to be my teacher for whatever period it was. And she was my Spanish teacher, and we had an incredible relationship. I just looked at her as someone that I appreciated, someone that was a mentor. And she spoke into me during that period versus belittling me of it was just that. And I still remember that. She gave me a pack of gum and said, clean up your mouth, that sort of thing. But she said, clean up your mouth because I can see the potential in you, because I understand, I can see what you have in front of you. to your point about the relationship, that never would have happened had I not had a relationship with her. So it's just it is a great analogy to use school and the relationships you have with teachers as how we walk through our everyday. We have an order to things. We have habits. We have times that we wake up. We have times that we go to sleep, times that we eat, things that we do. We have a schedule. Life is busy, but are you truly making a relationship with the one thing that is present all the time from beginning to end? And that's Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's so good. And I love how, I don't think Jerry really said it this way, so I'm going to say it, but when you're talking about Paul.
Yeah.
And, people think, well, he was against church. They were literally killing Christians. He was a terrorist of terrorists. And then that one moment with Christ, and he was changed from Saul to Paul. But here's the beautiful thing on that. He thought he was doing right. He thought he was doing right. And that's where I believe sometimes God saw something in him. Even in the murdering, even in all of that, God saw something in him and said, and who knows how many times, we don't know how many times God tried to speak to him, but finally he was like, let me just come meet the Lord where it's there. But really I think about that when I think about if God can change him from somebody that was murdering Christians, that was trying to destroy the church, to someone that wrote most of the New Testament. Right. And then he can change anyone. And we think about that when we think about, he can change you. No, that means you. That means me. I'm not murdering people, but it's to think with hate towards someone is to murder. So I have murdered if you look at it that way.
Absolutely.
But really, if you think about if he can radically change Paul, it gives me hope. It gives me hope that there's times when I've even said, Lord, I'm doing the things that I don't want to do, and the things that I want to do, I haven't done lately. Help me as you help Paul. I mean, it's just like that to me. Nobody is too far gone. And so looking at people that may not look like us in our activity, our order, our whatever, and go, man, wonder what God's got planned for that person.
Yes, that is. I love how you said that. And it's again, we talk a lot about having the right intention, looking at things through the right lens. We use those words on this podcast frequently, but it is really the framework to renew your mind is looking at someone and asking, what does God have in store for them? Forgetting everything else, forgetting, the cover that may be on the book. Look at the pages that aren't yet written, and what does God have in store for them? And it's on us as Christians to help those folks see that. That's what we're here to do. I think a lot of us get caught up in, well, I do this and I've done that and I participated in this and I've given that much. I get it that there are good works, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do good works, but the true good work is bringing folks in a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah. It is. And when we, Jerry talked about, Sarah and Abraham and the promise from God. And you've talked openly on here about your journey. I'm going to say it that way. Journey to become a family or to expand the family. But what really hit me there was the impatience. When Jerry mentioned that, impatience led them to try to help God along. They were like, they took it in their own hands. And I don't remember who was sitting behind me now, but I turned around to him and said, me. I know I've done that. I can think of times when in life, the Lord showed me a glimmer of hope or promise or something in the future. And I'm like, well, Lord, you're kind of slow. Let me help you
get there.
Let's do this. But it wasn't like in Abraham and Sarah's case but it was still something I tried to rush. And I think we can all, and I think we either we don't believe God or we're not impressed with his timetable.
Mm.
So we're like, okay, well, if God's not going to do it, let me do it.
Yeah.
Or I'm not impressed with your timetable, God, so let me do it.
Mm.
And at the same time, though, and I got to share this because I think some people may be going, was that me that I rushed things? If you did, first of all, maybe you didn't. Maybe you felt led to do something. That's what God was calling you to do. So this is where I think a lot of discernment has to be taken. If somebody says, well, and I've heard this, and so I'm just going to speak freely because I want to make sure everybody hears this the right way. People have said, I couldn't get pregnant. We went and we adopted a child, and all of a sudden we got pregnant. Does that mean that we're not supposed to adopt? Maybe not. Maybe God knew their heart and thought, I'm going to give them, when they are obedient here, I'm going to bless them here. Yeah. Maybe they were faithful with the little and he gave them 5 more. Who knows, Or people that go into different treatments to get pregnant. I don't think that means you're rushing God. I think sometimes God uses science and he uses things. That's different. I think so let's take it outside of pregnancy. There are areas though that God's promised something. I think one of the bigger ones, Eli, if I had to say, is probably God's promised somebody, hey, you're going to be a great husband one day, a great wife. Yeah. But they just jump into bed with, I'm just being blunt here. This is not G-rated, podcast today. So, just warning. They jump into bed and get sexually involved with the first person that shows them attention. And what does that do? It confuses. Let's just talk real. It confuses love and lust. And all of a sudden, thank you, God, you brought me, he brought me this person. And he didn't bring you that person. And that's what I think. I wish I've seen that so many times.
Yeah.
I've seen that so many times. And I'm just going to be blunt, even after my divorce, there was temptation there. God, is this the one you have for me? This is, and I had to slow down and go, of course not. Yeah. That's not Wayne. That person can get your head straight, Wayne. Get focused on Christ. And so we can mess up by trying to jump ahead of God in business, in personal life. I think the only place we can't outrun God is seeking him. I don't think we'll seek him more than he wants us to seek him.
I agree.
Only place I can think of.
And I think the biggest question that stems out of that we hear is, well, then how do I know the difference? Right? How do I truly understand the difference? And I think that's a valid question.
It is.
But my response or my answer to that would be, you have to pray. You have to pray to truly know the difference. And you have to, in your prayer, ask for discernment. And you will feel it, at least for me. And I will, I'll raise my hand and be bold here. I sat in that love versus lust seat for a long time.
Sure.
And it beat the living crap out of me, because I thought every time I was in a relationship that this was possibly the one. And then when lust took over and it wasn't, I was heartbroken. Whether that was from my own actions or from the other individual. And then I started, truly praying for someone. And I knew that I had other people in my life, my mother being one of them, praying for me to find a partner. And by happenstance, through me coming home due to COVID, I made a reach out that Morgan popped up on my feed. And from there, we connected. So hadn't COVID happened, I've, reached out, like there's a lot of variables, but there's that confusion of lust versus love. And the biggest thing that helped me was when I got into my relationship with Morgan was I truly prayed about my relationship with God. Is
so good.
Understanding my relationship with God and how is there a true reflection of that in my relationship with Morgan? Yeah. That right there it will tell you everything. If it is simply a lust thing that you're attracted to, it's not it.
And so that's so good. And we're being really transparent here on this call, but it's so important. I want people to grab a hold of this, because lust or love doesn't mean just, let's take it out of relationships, because yes, it can be lust for sex, or it can be love for a relationship, but it can also be lust for wealth. And we do something that's not what God has called us to do, or lust for, even just friendship. Let's take romantic and sexual relationships out. Lust for friendship, lust for, I want to fit into this crowd. I did that as a teenager. I want to fit in with this. They're doing this. Okay, I'll do a little bit of that. It's okay. And all of a sudden you compromise because you've not followed what God has. And even when, I remember, not that I was perfect by any means, but I remember when like you said, I want somebody in my life that I'm spending the rest of my life with. I had to get serious about God.
Yes.
It was really funny, and this is definitely a sideway topic here, but I remember reading a book once, and it was a book written for teenagers, and the book was called "I Kissed Dating Goodbye." I need to buy it for my daughter. It was a great book, but the book talked about, I'm not even going to date to be dating. I'm not going to date to be dating. I'm going to date to find a wife, and I'm going to be pure until we're married. And I come from a divorce. I'm walking into it from a history, right? But I read that book, and I remember just saying, okay, God, me and you, the promise is there, but I don't want any Ishmaels along the way.
Yes.
The promise is there. So even like the one or two relationship talks, whatever, kind of dating I had going on, I cut them off. No. And went almost a year without any dating, anything. And then I see Candace, and I'm like, okay, God, is this, where do we go here? But me and Candace both made a decision that it's going to be relational. I'm sharing way too much on the podcast, but we made a decision.
Yes.
We made that decision that it was going to be relational, not sexual.
Yes.
That we were going to build a relationship. And the beautiful thing, and I'm going to get off of that subject, before I get in trouble here talking about things. Again, this is not the G-rated version but I'm ready for some real, and I think that's what we've been able to bring.
Yeah.
But let's take it even in business. In business, like if the Lord said, go do this, work here, start this business, do this, work as unto the Lord, is what we're told. Yeah. That's the gold standard. Work as unto the Lord. But lust to get off a few minutes early, lust to get that next account, lust to be seen, that lust, maybe it's not a sexual lust, it's a lust, though, that can cause you to compromise.
Yes, it's a human desire.
And even though we may not see it God's way, hey, it's like Jerry said, I can imagine Abraham going in to Sarah and going, hey, you share a milkshake, we're going to have a child, as Jerry said. Imagine the laughter, the confusion, the doubt, all of that. And that doubt is why we have Ishmael. That doubt took a relationship and took it from, hey, be with my maidservant. He had to go and have sex. Let's just really call it what it is. He had to go and sleep with the maidservant to get her pregnant, to bring forth Ishmael, and that wasn't God's promise. And that's where, if we're not careful, I've thought about this before. What if they just said, all right, God, we got a plan, God. We got a plan. Is this you or not? And they'd listened. I really believe God would have said, no, she's not your wife. This isn't how the seed is going to be, turn into a great nation. No, this is your wife. But we get in our own lust. And I go back to even what I think about Paul, a great leader, a Jewish leader. He was like he was a terrorist to the Christian church, probably out of lust, even in zeal that was inappropriately targeted. Yes. So we have to be careful today. And And when you have messed up, there's grace. I always got to throw that in there, because some people are going, wow, what if I messed up, Wayne? What if I messed up in business or marriage or this or that? God's a God of grace and God of second, third, and fourth beginnings if need be. So call on him.
And I love where you went with that, because I take it to even a business situation. I remember when we were approached in my LA days to have someone that everybody knew, that everybody recognized, offered to buy our business. And there was the desire, the lust for that financial gain. But it came with baggage. And, we as a partnership, we talked about it, but I truly was curious and we prayed about it. And it was something that we did not proceed with. And we left a sizable amount of money on the table as 24, 25, 26-year-olds. But we made that decision because of what we've talked about here, praying and understanding fit. The baggage that was going to come along with that purchase was things that we weren't willing to compromise. To your point, we weren't willing to compromise for those things. So I think it's all about being able to pray on whatever situation you're in, whether it's a relational, whether it's business, whether it's part of your church. Pray on it and ask for that discernment, and truly pray about the outcome. What is the desired outcome? And is your human flesh or your human desires getting in the way of what the intention or what the intended outcome is from God's perspective? And I think that taking that, it segues perfectly into what Jerry talked about at the end of service, is being faithful with what God gave you. Yes. Knowing you're in a situation, being faithful that you are in that situation and you're leveraging those gifts the way that God wants you to, not what someone else puts in front of you, or not what right here, this human flesh that we have may want, because frankly, this stuff is going to get us in trouble every day of the week if we let it.
Yeah.
So I often in a reflective way is like, what gift or opportunity am I burying because it doesn't look like what's out in the world? It doesn't look like social media. It doesn't look like what we see as the perfect relationship or situation or business setup or whatever it may be.
It's so true, Eli. If you look at anybody, and we'll use social media because it's so powerful of an influencer. If we look at anybody's business, ministry, personal life, very few get on there and go, hey, here's my highlight reel of the 3 ways I screwed up today. Hey, let me walk you through my dirty office with pancakes over here. Let me show you the problems. That's not what we see, but we still covet what they have. And I think that's so, and you have to be careful to go, okay, what can I glean from this person? What can I learn from this person? That's just human nature, like what can I do, but not how do I become jealous or envious of something that God hasn't given me. And I go back to, again, hindsight's 20/20, different business decisions I've made, ministry decisions I've made, and said, what if I had? But I always want to follow that up with, however, I can't go back and what if. Me and Candace had that conversation. I can't go back and what if I hadn't left the church, this church? What if I hadn't left this? What if I had taken this job opportunity? What if I hadn't taken this? You can't do that. You can do it from a place of wisdom and go, hey, okay, what did I learn from that? But then you have to immediately go into, thank God is a God of grace and multiple beginnings again. He'll the one watching this, he'll take your life wherever you're at. He is the potter. As long as you're that clay. I love how Brenda does it at the nativity. That's one of my favorite spots is the potter, where she talks about if we're clay, he can form us into whatever, and I have to think about that a lot because I want to be my own potter.
Yeah.
I want to form my own life the way it should look. But he's the potter. Yes. And I'm the clay. And that's what we have to remember. Stop trying to be and that's one of what I said earlier, going back to work as unto the Lord. We shared something before this call. How do I handle my daily job right now and the daily responsibilities with what's going on in my life, I'll just work as unto the Lord.
Yes.
And that so he is the provider, no one else.
And I think that as we wrap this up, the reminder is simple. You do not have to earn what Jesus already paid for. And you just talked about that, Wayne. Grace changes everything for us because it shifts our confidence. It shifts our confidence away from our own effort, and it brings it back to your point, our faith in Jesus Christ. He's the potter and we're the clay. So as we head into this week, ask yourself, am I truly trusting Jesus, or am I just trying to prove myself? Am I walking actually by faith, or am I leaning on my works, what I've done, or what my routine is, or even my, religious efforts? And who in my life needs me to pray with real compassion and to believe that God can still reach them? Because we all have those individuals in our lives. So just take that forward. Maybe start with one small reach towards Jesus, but that reach matters. It truly does, because his presence still heals, his grace still restores, and his mercy still makes us whole. So think about that as you walk through this week. And as always, we'd love to see you tomorrow, Wednesday night, for community dinner. I think we're going to actually start serving a little early for community dinner at 5:45. And then we'll transition to Bible study at 7 p.m. Again, it's a great way to stay connected with the folks at the church, with the community, grow in the word, and just walk this out together. It's not meant to be a solo ride. It's a journey that we're supposed to take together. So
it is. I'm gonna give a shout out to just a little on the tomorrow night. We're doing the Lord's Prayer. So last week we did our first intro, and so tomorrow night we're gonna be into Our Father and what it means. Just those two words, and I could spend weeks on it. We're gonna try to cover it in one evening. Be there.
Be there. Yes. And if this encouraged you, or if you're looking to join the community, come out. That's what Wednesday nights are for. That's what Sundays are for. Doors are always open. And as always, please share this episode. I know it may sound simple, but it could reach someone that really needs it. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time on the Overflow Podcast. Have a blessed rest of your week, everybody. Take care.